What's up, you freaking geniuses? So in this video, I'm going to teach you how to factor quadratics using the guess and check method, okay, which is sometimes referred to as the trial and error method, right? Now, this method is really good for whenever your quadratic here has a leading coefficient that is greater than 1, all right? So as you can see, we have a 3 right here. So here we can use the guess and check method, right? Now, there's basically 4 different types of cases, and it basically just has to do with the signs. Right, so here you can see that we have a plus plus, but there's also a plus minus, there's a minus plus, and a minus minus, all right? So I'm going to do one example of each one so you know how to solve each case. Okay, so let's start with this problem right here. 3x squared plus 22x plus 7. Okay, so the first thing you want to do is just write your parentheses right here, okay? Now, whenever we had just an x squared, okay, so if this first term right here was just an x squared, we would put an x right there and an x right there. But in this case, we have a 3, right? So what are two numbers you can multiply together to get 3? Well, the only two you can multiply together are 1 and 3, okay? So that means we have to put a 1 on one of the x's and a 3 on the other x. Okay, or to simplify it a little bit more, we can get rid of the 1 over here, right? Because 1x is the same thing as just x. And we can just leave the 3 on that one. Okay, great. So we figured out our terms right here. Okay, another thing you can tell right off the bat is that there's going to be a plus sign right here and right here. Okay, how can you tell? Well, because if you look at your quadratic right here, there's a plus sign right here and right here. Okay, so we're only dealing with positive numbers up here, right? We don't have a minus sign on either side. So that's a dead giveaway that both of your signs inside of your factored answer right here are both also plus signs, okay? So we figured out our first two terms right there. We figured out our signs. The last thing we have to figure out is just what numbers go right here at the very end, okay? And the way you figure that out is by looking at your last number right here. So here we have a positive 7, right? So what two numbers can you multiply together to get a positive 7? Well, the only two numbers we can multiply together are 1 times 7, right? So these are the two numbers we're going to plug in into these empty spots right here, okay? But do you put a 1 here and a 7 here, or do you put the 7 here and the 1 here? Well, one way you can kind of look at it is by looking at your pairs here, okay? So there's basically just two pairs to look out for. So these outside pairs right there, so that's a pair, so x times 1, and this inside pair right here, 7 times 3x, okay? Now, do either of these pairs get close to your middle number right here in your quadratic? So here we have a 22, right? Well, this outside pair right here, x times 1, is equal to 1x. Is 1x, or just 1, close to 22? No, it's not, right? What about this inside pair? 7 times 3, is that close to 22? Well, sure it is, right? Because 7 times 3 is equal to 21, and 21 is close to 22, okay? So if one of your pairs are ever pretty close to your middle number right here, you probably have them in the right order, okay? And the way you can check that is by simply foiling your factored answer right here, all right? And when we foil it, we should get back to this original quadratic right up here, okay? So we're gonna do first, right? So x times 3x, that's equal to 3x squared. And then we're gonna go outer. So x times 1, that's equal to 1x, right? Positive 1x. So plus, we could just write that as x. And then we're going to go inner. So 7 times 3x, that's equal to positive 21x, right? So plus 21x. And then we'll go last, right? So 7 times 1, that's equal to positive 7, right? Plus 7. Right, so now if we simplify this, we're going to get 3x squared. And then here we have 1x plus 21x, and that's equal to 22x, right? So we have plus 22x, and then this last number right here plus 7, right? So as you can see, we got right back to where we started from. So when we foiled it, we got exactly where we started, right? So that means this factored answer right here was correct. Okay, so x plus 7 in parentheses times 3x plus 1 in parentheses. Okay, so hopefully that wasn't too bad. Once we do a couple more, I think you're going to start recognizing the pattern. Okay, so here is our next example. 6t squared minus 13t plus 5, right? So again, the first thing I'm going to do is write in my parentheses for my factored answer right here. Now we have a t squared right here, so I know I'm going to have a t here and a t here. Okay, and I have a 6 right here, so what two numbers multiplied together equal 6? Well, we can multiply 1 and 6 together, or we can multiply 2 and 3 together. Okay, so we can either put a 1 and a 6 right here, or we can put a 2 or a 3. Okay, and just to be clear, we can also mix those up. So if I wanted to, I could put the 3 here and the 2 there, okay? Or same thing with the 1 and the 6. I could put the 6 first and the 1 right there, okay? Okay, all 4 ways are completely fine. So in this case, let's try the 2 and the 3, okay? Let's just put a 2 here and 3 here. Okay, so we're not completely sure if these are the right numbers for our factored answer, but one thing we can figure out right now is our sign, okay? So we're gonna have a minus sign right here and a minus sign right here. Okay, how do you know that? Well, whenever you have a minus sign first and then a plus sign second, your two signs right here will always be minus, minus, okay? If these two signs up here were flipped, okay, if I had a plus and a minus like that, then that would not be the case here, okay? But since we have a minus sign first and then a plus sign second, your two signs right here will always be minus, minus. Okay, now the last thing we have to figure out here are our numbers that go right there at the ends, right? And again, the way you get that is from your final number right here. So here we have a positive 5. Okay, so what two numbers multiplied together equal positive 5? Well, that would be a 1 and a 5. Okay, so that means we're going to have a 1 and a 5 here, okay? Or again, maybe it's the other way around. Maybe the 5 is here and the 1 is here, okay? So again, how can you figure that out? Well, we're going to FOIL it and actually work out the math, but one thing you can do beforehand is just by looking at the two pairs. Okay, so again, the two pairs you want to look at is this outer pair and this inner pair. Okay, so do one of your pairs get close to negative 13? Well, with this first pair, we have 2t times negative 1. That's equal to negative 2t, all right? So that doesn't get very close to negative 13. Okay, what about this inside pair? Negative 5 times 3t. Well, that would be equal to negative 15t, all right? That one's pretty close to negative 3t. So maybe we have this correct like this, all right? Maybe the 5 does go here and the 1 goes here at the end. Okay, so again, let's try foiling this and see if we get back to where we started from right up here, okay? So foiling this, we're gonna go first, so 2t times 3t, that's equal to 6t squared, right? And then outer, so 2t times negative 1, that's equal to negative 2t, so minus 2t. And then we're gonna go inner, so negative 5 times 3t, that's equal to negative 15t, okay, negative 15t, and then we're going to go last. So negative 5 times negative 1 is equal to positive 5, right? So plus 5. All right, so then simplifying this, we're going to get 6t squared, and then we can combine these two terms right here, right? Negative 2t minus 15t, that's equal to negative 17t. Okay, so negative 17t, and then we have plus 5 at the end. Okay, so did we get back to where we started from up here? No, we didn't, right? We got close, but not quite, because we got negative 17t here, but it should have been negative 13t, all right? So that means this factored answer that we came up with here was not correct. Okay, so one thing we can try and do here is flip the 5 and the 1, okay? So I'm gonna put the 1 over here and the 5 on this side, okay? So let's just write it down here. So this time we're gonna have 2t minus 1, okay, in one set of parentheses, and then in the other set of parentheses, we're going to have 3t minus 5. 3t minus 5. Okay, so you can see I flipped the 1 and the 5, right? So now let's FOIL this and see if we can get back to right here where we started, right? So again, we're going to do FOIL. So first, 2t times 3t, that's equal to 6t. Then we're going to go outer. So 2t times negative 5 is equal to negative 10t. So minus 10t. Then we're going to go inner. So negative 1 times 3t, that's equal to negative 3t. negative 3t. And then we're going to go last. So negative 1 times negative 5 is positive 5. Okay, and I forgot my square right there. Okay, so here we have 6t squared. And then here we can simplify, or we can combine these two terms again, right? Negative 10t minus 3t, that's equal to negative 13t. So negative 13t, and then plus 5. Okay, so did we just wind up back where we started? Yes, we did, right? Up here we have 6t squared minus 13t plus 5, and down here we have the exact same thing. Okay, so that means this answer right here, this factored answer was correct, right? So as you can see, that's why this is called guess and check or trial and error, right? Because you're not always going to get it on the first try, right? This was our first try up here, and we tried to, and we foiled it, but we didn't get to where we needed to get to, right? But then we tried it one more time, and then we did get back to where we needed to get to, right? So sometimes it's going to take you a few tries to get to where you need to get to, right? So now let's just do the last two cases. Okay, so here we have 14a squared minus 47a minus 7. All right, so again, the first thing I'm going to do is write a couple of pairs of parentheses here, all right? Now, here we have 14a squared. So we have an a squared here, so we know an a goes here and an a goes here, right? And then to split up the 14, we can split it up as 1 times 14, or we could do something like 2 times 7, right? Very rarely, for whatever reason, in my experience anyways, will it be this pair right here where it's the number and just the 1 by itself. So you normally want to try this one instead. If there's another pair, you want to just try that one. So here we're going to go with 2 and 7 instead to try it first, okay? So I'm going to put a 2 there and a 7 here. Okay, now the next thing we need to figure out are what the numbers that go right here along with the signs are, right? And we're going to get that from our very last number right here, negative 7. Okay, so what are two numbers we can multiply together to get negative 7? Well, negative 7 is prime, so the only numbers we can multiply are 1 times negative 7 or negative 1 times positive 7, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a negative 7 here and a positive 1 here. Okay, so why did I do that? Well, again, I'm looking at my middle number right here, negative 47, okay? And then I'm taking into account my pairs. So this first pair right here, 2a times 1, that's equal to 2a, right? And then if you look at this inner pair right here, negative 7 times 7a is equal to negative 49a, right? Are either of these close to our number right here, negative 47a? Well, yeah, this one is, right? So if you ever get a number that's pretty close to the number that you have here in the middle, you're on the right track, most likely, okay? So again, the way we check that is by simply foiling this out. Okay, so let's do that. So again, we're gonna go first right here. So 2a times 7a, that's equal to 14a squared. And then outer, so 2a times positive 1 is just positive 2a, so plus 2a. And then we're going to go inner right here. So negative 7 times 7a is negative 49a, right? So minus 49a. And then we're going to go last right there. So negative 7 times 1 is just negative 7, so minus 7, right? So simplifying this, we're going to get 14a squared. And then this middle part right here, we can simplify, right? We can combine like terms. So positive 2a minus 49a is equal to negative 47a, right? Negative 47a. And then we have this minus 7 at the end, right? So as you can see, we wound back up where we started, right? So when we foiled it out, we got back to exactly where we started right up here, okay? So that means we factored this correctly right here. And it's a little messy, sorry about that. But you can see it's 2a minus 7 in parentheses times 7a plus 1 in parentheses, okay? So again, the trick here was just keeping an eye out for your pairs, right? You always want to look at that pair and your inner pair, all right? So now let's try one last example. Okay, so here's the last problem. 14m cubed plus 80m squared minus 24m. All right, one thing I forgot to mention on the other problems is the first thing you always want to do is see if there's something you can factor out of each of these terms right here, okay? That's the first thing you want to do. And in this case, there is, okay? And that would be a 2m, okay? Each of these terms right here are divisible by 2m. So that means we can pull out a 2m, okay? So then what would we be left with inside these parentheses here? Okay, well, when you factor something out, again, that's the same thing as just dividing, all right? So here, 14m cubed divided by 2m. Well, 14 divided by 2, that's equal to 7. And then we have 3 m's on the top and 1 m on the bottom. Okay, so this m on the bottom will cancel out with one of the m's on the top, right? So then we would just be left with 2 m's on the top. Or in other words, m squared. Okay, so then we would have an m squared right here, right? And then here, 80m squared, if we factor out a 2m, well, 80 divided by 2, that's equal to 40. Okay, and then we have a plus sign right here, so it's positive 40, right? Plus 40. And then if we factor out an m right here, that's going to be the same thing as just taking out one of the m's, so we'll just be left with 1 m right here, right? M to the first, or simply just m, okay? And then here, negative 24m, if we factor out 2m, well, negative 24 divided by 2 would be equal to negative 12, right? Negative 12. And then if we take out the m, well, there's only one m right here anyway, so if we take it out, we're going to be left with no m's, right? 0 m's right here, okay? So we don't bring any m's down here. Okay, so now that I factored out a 2m, now this is a little bit easier to work with, right? So 7m squared plus 40m minus 12. Okay, so now this is what we're going to be trying to factor, right? So here, I'm going to write my two sets of parentheses, okay? So here we have an m squared, so I know I put an m here and an m here, okay? And what are two numbers we can multiply to get 7? Well, that would be 1 and 7, right? So I can put a 1 here, but I don't actually have to write it in. And then I'll put the 7 right there, okay? So m and 7m. Okay, now we just need to figure out what numbers go right here, right? And again, that's going to come from our last number right here, negative 12, all right? So what are two numbers we can multiply together to get negative 12? Well, that would be 1 and negative 12. That would be negative 1 and positive 12. And 2 times negative 6 and negative 2 times positive 6, right? And then lastly, we have 3 times negative 4 and negative 3 times positive 4. Okay, so one of these pairs right here are going to be the numbers that we place into these empty spots right here, right? And the one, or actually the two that I'm looking at are going to be these two right here. Okay, why am I looking at these two? Well, because I can see if I put a 6 here and a 2 here, you can see this middle pair right here, right? 6 times 7 is equal to 42, which again, we want to get somewhere near this middle number right here, right? They have to add up to somewhere near this middle number, and 6 times 7 is equal to 42, which is pretty close to 40, right? So that's why I'm thinking a 6 and a 2 would go pretty well here. Now I just need to figure out the signs, right? So if I want it to add up close to positive 40, that means this big middle number, right, 6 times 7 would have to get close to positive 40. So that means the positive sign should be right there, right? Because positive 6 times 7 is equal to positive 42, right? Which is, again, close to positive 40. So then I'll slap the negative sign on this one. Okay, so this is the one we're going to try. But first thing we have to do is remember this 2m that we factored out at the very beginning. We need to make sure we bring this down also. Okay, that didn't go anywhere. That's still there. Okay, so we're going to FOIL this now, and we should get back to this part right here. Okay, 7m squared plus 40m minus 12. Okay, so let's FOIL this out. Okay, so we're going to go first. So m times 7m, that's equal to 7m squared. Then we're going to go outer. So m times negative 2 is negative 2m. And then we're going to go inner right here. 6 times 7m is positive 42m. And last, so 6 times negative 2 is negative 12. Okay, and if you want, you can still put your parentheses around this whole thing and bring down the 2m again, right? The 2m is still just on the outside. Okay, and now the last thing I'm going to do is simplify this by combining like terms. So here we're going to have 7m squared, and then here we have Negative 2m plus 42m. Negative 2 plus 42 is positive 40, right? So we're going to have positive 40m, and then minus 12 at the end. Okay, and again, you can put your parentheses on there and bring down the 2m again. Okay, so as you can see, we wound up back to where we started, right? So here we have 7m squared plus 40m minus 12 in parentheses, right, with this 2m on the outside. And then right here, we have the exact same thing. 7m squared plus 40m minus 12 in parentheses with the 2m on the outside, okay? So that means this answer right here, and make sure you include the 2m, okay, that's part of your answer, what we factored out. So this answer right here would be your correct factored answer. So if you found the video helpful, definitely leave a thumbs up down below. And if you have any other questions or want to see any other examples, just let me know in the comment section below. Also, there's a couple playlists attached that I think you'll find helpful, so definitely check those out, and I'll see you there.